In the past couple of weeks, Russian forces have apparently intensified their ground invasion in eastern Ukraine, taking advantage of Trump's distraction in Iran and hoping that the spring fog would reduce the effectiveness of Ukrainian drone and artillery strikes. However, despite the Russian army's best efforts, their rate of advance has declined steadily for the past few months, and the prospect of some sort of frontline collapse in Ukraine, which once felt like a real possibility, has receded. So in this video, we'll take a look at the latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine war, why Ukraine suddenly looks to be doing all right, and what might be driving this change in fortunes. Now, before we launch into this, a quick caveat. In making this video, we don't want to overstate things. Russia isn't about to collapse, the Russian army is still making slow territorial gains in Ukraine's east, and the war in Iran is currently providing a much-needed windfall for the Kremlin's state coffers. Nonetheless, what we're going to try and push back against here is the assumption, which seems widely held in parts of the media and in Washington, that a Russian victory or further territorial gains are somehow inevitable, and that Ukraine should thus sue for peace. On the contrary, the experience of the past few weeks suggests that the Russian army is running out of steam, and Russia's rate of advance seems to have slowed markedly. According to data compiled by the Institute for the Study of War, for instance, Russia's rate of advance in Ukraine fell from about 200 square miles per month last year to 50 or so square miles in February, the latest month which data is available for. And Ukraine actually gained territory in the last 2 weeks of the month, as Russian gains in the east were offset by Ukrainian advances in the south. To give you a sense of quite how slow this is, consider the fact that Ukraine still controls about 2,500 square miles of territory in Donbass, which means that, if Russia were to continue advancing at just 50 square miles a month, it would take them about 4 more years of grinding attritional warfare just to assert control over Donbass. According to analysis by CSIS, Russia's average rate of advance on most fronts in Ukraine has been slower than almost any other major offensive in the last century, including the notoriously deadly and grinding Battle of the Somme in World War I. And it's telling that Russian officials are already trying to manage expectations for the ongoing offensive, with one Russian Duma deputy saying that Russia would only advance at, quote, a leisurely pace towards the city of Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. Furthermore, it's important to stress that this declining rate of advance doesn't reflect a sort of tactical pause or easing on Russia's part. On the contrary, Russia has apparently stepped up the intensity of its attacks in recent weeks, as its much-anticipated spring offensive begins to take shape. While casualty figures in Ukraine should always be taken with a large pinch of salt, Bloomberg reported last month that Western officials now believe that Russia's casualty rate is outstripping its recruitment rate for the first time since 2022, estimating that Russia is currently losing about 35,000 personnel a month, but only recruiting something like 30,000. There's some evidence from inside Russia that the Kremlin is actually worried about falling recruitment rates. In January, for instance, the Kremlin announced a new recruitment campaign for its unmanned systems forces, in other words, for drone pilots. But the campaign has apparently fallen short because the contracts on offer contain provisions basically saying that the Russian MOD can transfer new recruits to non-USF units. At the same time, there have also been reports, including from the UK MOD, that Russia is leaning more heavily on foreign mercenaries, including from Africa, Central Asia, and North Korea. Russia's struggles on the front lines seem to be at least partly a consequence of Elon Musk's decision in early February to ban Russia from using Starlink satellite internet units. For context, until the 1st of January, both Ukraine and Russia were using Starlink terminals for communication, with SpaceX providing Ukraine with thousands of terminals after Russia's February 2022 invasion. There are now around 50,000 deployed across Ukraine in total. Eventually, having failed at jamming and disrupting Ukraine's Starlink terminals, Russia also decided to start using them, reportedly acquiring them via Russian firms, which bought them from intermediaries in third countries. However, in early February, SpaceX launched a verification system limiting access to only a whitelist of authorized terminals, thereby cutting off access to Russian forces. This has apparently reduced the effectiveness of Russia's drone capabilities, especially for mid-range strikes, and was one of the big reasons that Ukraine was able to make advances in late February. Struggles on the front line might explain why Russia has started focusing more on energy and other civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, with long-range drone and missile strikes. Again, however, this strategy doesn't seem to be working too well. Ukraine has made it through the winter and been able to retaliate by striking Russian oil infrastructure. Furthermore, in late February, Ukraine conducted a landmark airstrike on a Russian missile facility more than 1,400 kilometers away from Ukraine, using the domestically produced FP-5 Flamingo cruise missiles, the first time that had been used to strike deep inside Russia. Ukraine's newfound ability to bring the war to Russia might explain why Russian public opinion is apparently turning on Putin's special military operation. While polls from inside Russia should be taken with a massive pinch of salt, the latest poll from the independent Levada Center, widely considered to be the most reliable pollster in Russia, found that in March, 67% of Russians said that it was time for peace negotiations, an all-time high and up from 61% in February. Interestingly, another poll found that the percentage of Russians saying that they trust Putin fell to 75%, the lowest reading since the war began. So what does all of this mean for the coming months? Well, Russia's ongoing offensive in eastern Ukraine will almost definitely continue, with the Kremlin encouraged on by higher state oil revenues as a result of the US-Israeli war against Iran, and the fact that NATO support for Ukraine has been jeopardized by dwindling munition stockpiles. However, if the rate of advance doesn't markedly increase and recruitment pressures persist, there have been some reports that the Kremlin is considering an involuntary conscription drive, with a digital registry already set up for a potential draft. If it comes to this, Putin will be forced to make a choice between ordering a compulsory mass mobilization, which would be politically risky given declining public enthusiasm for the war and the backlash incurred by the partial draft in September 2022, or making a renewed push for some sort of deal. Now, there are a lot of big players involved in this story, and it's no secret that the world we live in is run by big players like these, but not just in the world of politics. Big companies also have a complete monopoly over the world we live in, and avoiding them is kind of out of our control, as they seep into every part of our day-to-day life. But what if we told you that you could get some of that control back? Starting with your email. I know you're thinking, my email? How much will that actually help? Well, your email is personal to you, and it's important to keep hold of what's yours. Most messaging apps make sure to let you know that your messages are end-to-end encrypted. So why do emails deserve any less? Well, thankfully, Proton Mail offers a solution to this. It's a private, secure alternative to big companies like Gmail, and will give you everything you need to be productive while also keeping those pesky ads away from your inboxes. Although it's more than just the annoying ads, it's the fact that every single person is born with privacy, but now that privacy is essentially non-existent because of our digital world. Today, children begin building their digital identity before they're even born, without them even having a choice. Email inboxes weren't created to protect children. They were designed to collect data and feed that information into AI systems that will shape the way they're categorized and targeted for life. That's where Proton Mail's Born Private campaign comes in, as they offer a complete generational reset, giving you the opportunity to reserve an email account for your child. Their account can easily be reserved today, and it can be secured and protected for up to 15 years. This will give your child a secure digital start from day one, as when they're ready, their inbox is waiting, private, clean, and fully theirs. So if you want to take back your privacy, or protect the future privacy of your family, start using Proton Mail for free using our link at proton.me/bp/TLDR, and you'll be one step closer to a fully protected online experience, free from data exploitation.